Hi everyone, welcome back to audit session and today we will discuss about the testing controls. So what are the process of testing the controls? So firstly it involves the evaluating the design effectiveness. So auditor should determine whether controls if operated as prescribed satisfy the entity's control objectives and can effectively prevent, detect and correct the material misstatement. This can be done through walkthrough like understanding the process. Testing the operating effectiveness. Auditor should determine whether the control is operating as designed and whether the person performing the control possesses the necessary authority and competence to perform the controls effectively. So here it can be done by the performance, inquiry, inspection or observation. After that, the relationship of the risk related to the audit evidence obtained. As risk associated with the control being tested increases, the sufficiency and appropriateness of evidence to be obtained also increases. So auditor should obtain the evidence about the effectiveness of the selected control for each relevant assertions. However, the auditor is not responsible for obtaining the sufficient appropriate audit evidence to support the opinion on the effectiveness of the individual control. Auditor should also determine the effect of the identified deviations on the auditor's risk assessment as well as on the nature of the operating effectiveness of the control. After that, the nature of the test of the control. Some test procedure greater evidence than others. So test in the order of the evidence that the ordinarily will produce from least to most, like inquiry, observation, inspection of the performance. So the process is should be from the least evidence to the most evidence, and inquiry alone is sufficient not sufficient to support the conclusion in the effectiveness of the control. Inquiry is just a part but not alone. It is not sufficient to give a conclusion on the test of the control. Extent of the test of the control. The more extensively a control is tested, the greater the evidence obtained. Timing of the test of the control. Testing the control over the longer period provides the more evidence of the effectiveness of the control than testing for the shorter period. Like if you test for the entire year, the process will be different, but if we are doing for the interim period, then the timing will be shortened. So both of them will give the different results. Further, testing performed closer to the as of date provides more evidence than testing performed during the at the earlier period in the year. Also, during the roll forward procedures, if auditor obtains evidence about the operating effectiveness of the control at an interim date, the auditor should determine whether when additional evidence of concerning the operation of the control of the remaining period is necessary or not. A special consideration for the subsequent years of the auditor. So auditor should use the knowledge obtained during the past audit to determine the nature, extent and timing of the testing on the subsequent years of the audit. Auditor should also vary the nature, extent, timing of the testing of the controls from period to period. Benchmarking of the automated controls. So entirely automated application controls are generally less susceptible to breakdown due to the human failure, which may allow the auditor to use benchmarking strategy step. Use of the service organization. We will discuss in detail about the service organization, but if there is a entity user service organization, then auditor should obtain the type 2 report and perform the test of the controls at a service organization level. We will discuss in detail about the service organization in the later chapters. Identifying and evaluating the deficiencies in ICFR. So auditor should evaluate the severity of the identified deficiencies, and if individually or in combination they constitute significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. So severity depends on the magnitude and the likelihood of the potential misstatement. Compensating controls, if operating effectively, may prevent and identify deficiencies from being material weakness. Concluding procedures of there are concluding processes like forming an opinion on the effectiveness, obtaining the written representation from the management, communicating ICFR related matters, significant deficiencies and material weakness and other deficiencies that have been identified. So these are our concluding steps. After that, reporting on ICFR. Report can be issued combined or separate on FS and ICFR. Report there should not be earlier than the date on which auditor has obtained sufficient complete evidence to support them. Auditor may issue unqualified or unmodified opinion on ICFR only when there are no identified material weakness and there are no restriction on the scope of the audit work. uh, if there are existence of one or more material weakness, then there should be adverse opinion. If there is the existence of the scope limitation, then auditor should either withdraw or provide a disclaimer of opinion. Auditor opinion relates to the efficiency of the company's ICFR as of point the time and taken as a whole. So it includes the inherent limitations paragraphs stating that because of the inherent limitations, ICFR may not prevent or detect or correct the misstatement whether by fraud or error. So now we will the last part of this topic is the management responsibility. We have discussed the auditor's responsibility throughout, but now what's management responsibility? Management is responsible for maintaining the effective ICFR, and management should accept its responsibility. Management's written representation to the auditor. There should be acknowledgement of the management in the management written letter. There should be acknowledgement by the management responsibility for establishing and maintaining the ICFR, stating that the management has performed an assessment of the effectiveness of the entity's ICFR based on the criteria. Confirm that management disclosed all the deficiencies in design and operating ICFR to auditor. It should include separate disclosure of all the deficiencies that management believes to be significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. There should be also description about the fraud resulting in the material misstatement to the entity's financial statement and any other fraud involving senior management. They should also state whether or not significant deficiencies and material weakness identified in the prior period has been resolved or not. And last but not the least, state whether there should be any changes in ICFR subsequent to as to the date, including any corrective actions taken by the management. If the company is listed, if they are issuers, then there are certain quarterly certification, so which management must evaluate at ICFR each quarter. Also, management report on ICFR needs to include the statement regarding the management responsibility for ICFR, description of the ICFR over preparation of the entity's financial statement, identification of the criteria, management assessment about the ICFR, description about the material weakness, dates on which management assessment on ICFR is made. So this was all about the management's responsibility and auditor's responsibility we have discussed. So that's all to the ICFR. Now I will see you in the next chapter. Stay connected and let me know if you have any queries in the comments. Thank you and bye.